Everything is going extremely well.
And now, showtime.
Go. Boom. There we are. Let's bring this up. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show today. We've got a very special one around AI, creative strategy, the tools that you need to use to make the most amount of money. We're going to make all of this really simple today. Now, there's a bit of an aside from what we normally do. This is a great chat that I've had with the guys at Foreplay, as well as Barry Hott and Shabazz Coker. And I probably bastardize all of those names. But I want to say, first off, it's great to have you here. And we're going to open this up here in just a minute. But what I want to say real quick is, first off, some big shout outs to all the new members of Disruptor Academy. We have Ishak, we have Michael, we have Susanna, we have Susan, both of those, believe it or not, two different people. We have Sam, and we also have Barry. And let me look at this list. People didn't want me to share their full names, so I'm just going to give these shout outs. And Austin with a Y. Anyway, welcome to Disruptor Academy over the last week. It was incredible. We had a wonderful Q&A this week. We got another Q&A coming up in the next week, as well as two guest speakers. One on TikTok ads, and of course Nadeem, who is an MBA Facebook ads MBA grad, now the Meta MBA program. He's a grad, and he does a live class every single week where he opens up ad accounts, does reviews, whole bunch of other stuff. So absolutely loving that. Now, also, I want to give a shout out to the 5 people that joined the MBA program last week, and then we're going to dive into stuff. So I just want to say I'm loving all of this stuff. Palab, how can I master meta ads? By the way, if you have any questions today on any of the stuff we're talking about, drop them in the comment section. I'll try to get back to you then. If not, if you're watching this on replay where it's not live, just hit the comment section and I'll get back to you there. How can you master meta ads? Honestly, start here. And let's get into it. My number one recommendation, by the way, if you really want to make this work, is figure out how to do everything the simple way. Remember, a good business is what scales an ad account. It's not the other way around. Most of this big success that you see is built on many other things. And we're going to get into this in extreme detail today. So, as always, let me know where you're watching from. Let me know where you're at. Let me know what questions you have and how I can help. And with that being said, we had some big folks join the MBA program. We had Mike. We had Mark, again, this time with a C. We also had, let me get this list. Okay, we also have Jennifer. Nice. Miss Good is here. We also have, let's see here. Okay, we also have Mahmood. Awesome. And somebody else who didn't want their full name used, so I'll just call them by their first name. Conrad. Okay, all that to be said, everybody, this is going to be a lot of fun. We got people in the queue. Let's load it up. Hit me with your questions. Hit me with your comments. Let me know what you think. And as we go along, hey, what's up, Saddam? As we go along, drop your thoughts on what's happening here. Let me know what you think. Okay, I'm going to leave the comments live on stage here. So as you comment, they're just going to continue to be just shown. Live comments directly on the screen. All right. Now, with all that being said, let's get to the party.
So we're live on this week's Foreplay Fireside. Today's gonna be like a pretty casual one. No, super polished presentations. We have like a lot of really good minds here joining us on kind of just like a really casual fireside chat on just like AI and creative strategy and what people are doing right now to accelerate the work that they're doing in creative strategy with AI. And so want this to be kind of just like an open communication. Everybody that's live in the chat, feel free to drop questions. We'll field them as we go through. There won't be like a standard sort of like Q&A section. We'll kind of just use them to prompt the conversation and kind of keep going. And so, yeah, I would love to just kind of like open the floor. I think everybody has maybe like that one thing that they found last week or 2 weeks ago that's like they kind of keep going back to, a little unlock. I'll start with Barry. Is there anything new, or even like stuff that's like tried and true, super old that you're consistently, you know, going back to as like a tool in the tool chest for, you know, shipping more winning ads?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always just thinking about the first second, right? Like, I mean, it's not just about that, right? The rest of the ad has to be there, but I'm always just thinking about like, what's that first initial emotion, feeling, visual? Where is it? What does it say? How does it make you feel? That's the thing. And then, you know, how can I enhance that via text overlays, thoughtfully, and then also like I've been also thinking about like AI hooks, not the AI hooks for the sake of like making something that looks and feels like AI, but like what is something I could not make physically myself or wouldn't, that I could make with AI. So I'll say that for now.
Like kind of the idea of just like, how do I use AI to like take the craziest idea that I have and make it live, or like,
No,
okay,
it's rarely the craziest idea. It's rarely out there. It's usually like, it's just something I don't want to have to work with anyone else to make, right? Like, I don't want to have to talk to another human to produce this because they're going to be like, oh, well, what if we do it this way? And they'll like try and polish it and zhuzh it up fancy. And I'll just like prompt to make the video I want. I'll either take a photo that I already have and turn it into a video, or I'll use AI to make a similar image or the image of what I want and how I want it, and then use VO or whatever to animate it from there.
Cool.
Usually I'm making something that with that is real, like you're not crazy.
right. So to tactically, what are the tools you're using?
Tactically, what other tool am I using for AI?
Like you mentioned like VO and like, but is there like a go-to or?
VO is my go-to. VO is my go-to. I use Kling a little bit. I'll play with some other tools. But yeah, I'm mostly, when I'm doing this stuff, it's mostly in VO. Yeah. Unless I can't get what I want, but it's kind of rare that something else would beat that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Kling does good for non-voice stuff unless I've missed something and they've added voice stuff.
Cool. How about you, Charlie?
Yeah, for me, I think the biggest thing that I'm trying to focus on with stuff is like, I'm really trying to figure out how I can have ads that are sitting at the top of the funnel and ads that sit at the bottom of the funnel, and the way that like the platform is using those ads. Really, like, how can I make a conversation out of those things, right? And so a lot of times what that looks like is, if I've got a video, so like I think of it almost like a set of like Olympic rings. Like there's 3 rings at the top and there's 2 at the bottom, and those are, if those are 3 videos and then 2 static, and that's like a fully efficient funnel that I can run up. Really what I'm trying to do is understand what are the points being made in those videos. And if I'm launching a fair amount of them and I got a good data set, I can really try to use the AI tools to understand like how to think about those. Like, somebody watched this, they went to my site, they're interested, or they haven't yet been to the site. How do I get them across the finish line? Like, what are the objections? What are the interest points? All of the things that I can get to have those folks see something else, so that the videos are like the door knock, right? They're hanging flyers, and then the statics are coming in as the closers. I think where I make far less ads than I think most people do, and I actually prefer to have far less ads than most people do. So I am trying to have way more continuity between the parts of the funnel. But for me, I think the biggest thing that I'm really trying to look at is more around the understanding of the continuity between ads that have a low CPM and a low frequency that soak up all the budget, and then ads that have a high CPM and a high frequency that are super efficient but can never scale on their own. And what's a way of making those ads that are hyper efficient, that sit lower in the funnel in the way the platform uses them? What's the best way of taking those ads and making them more relevant to the stuff that is first touch? And so I can take those bottom of funnel efforts, move them slightly up the funnel so they get a slightly lower frequency, slightly lower CPM. They might not be as efficient, but they might double or triple in spend. So having that continuity of the conversation, I think, is really, really strong. And, you know, that's one of the reasons also why I think I launch a fraction of the number of ads that most people do, because I'm trying to have a very congruent conversation in the few assets that I have and let them get a ton of data. I think honestly, the number one AI tool that I use is Andromeda. To put it politely, I'm not trying to hack the machine. I'm trying to give it the best chance for success by kind of staying out of the way. But I think that's where I approach things very differently than most people. I might launch 10 ads a month instead of like 100 a week. But
so do you think? So you're saying that your trade-off on less surface area for testing is that you're able to be much more pointed with the messaging along the entire funnel. Like it just makes it easier to be super focused on that.
If a watch has 1,000 moving parts and it breaks, it's going to take you forever to know what's even wrong or to fix it or whatever. Like the more complicated something is, the harder it is to know what's wrong or what to take advantage of. The simpler something is, the easier it is to scale and the easier it is to fix, the easier it is to know what's happening. If I've got 3 or 4 ads at the top of my funnel and 2 or 3 ads at the bottom, I have a very clear understanding of what works and what doesn't. And my entire job is just figure out what is my weakest link? How do I make it stronger? I think when you launch 100 things, you're basically trying to grab 1,000 pieces of attention for an unknown number of reasons. And you might get really efficient at like that first touch, but understanding what's going to get those customers across the finish line. And more importantly for me, what that type of attention is that's going to get somebody to buy from you more than once. Like that becomes almost impossible. If people are walking in your store for 1,000 reasons, getting anybody to come back is almost impossible. I'd rather focus on the most stable way of getting the highest, I want to grow my revenue floor every month. If I can grow my revenue floor, my CPA can get worse. And I'm going to win the game on business model instead of volume of effort at the top of the funnel, which I would rather make the business stronger than destabilize my funnel for short wins.
Got it. How about you, Shabazz? What is it looking like on your end?
I mean, I have a very different take to Charlie on this one. I think high volume creative production is where it's at. I mean, we've seen this with so many brands. We look up brands like all day, every day, and all the top brands that are doing 9 figures plus, all the founders I've spoken to are doing 9 figures plus, are testing hundreds of ads every single month. I can understand that like some things are situational and maybe certain types of brands, you've just got like a winning concept that's working and you double down on it perhaps. But everything that I've seen over a number of years of doing this is like, yeah, you've got to be testing a lot of ads and a lot of diverse ads as well to get different audiences. I think so for me, like really it's about high volume creative production, and production is expensive. Like there's a hidden cost to production that people don't really talk about, in getting content creators, but not just that. It's like the faff of like hiring somebody to go and write the brief, to then send it to the content creator, to get the content back, to then get it through revisions, to go through that process, deal with the payments, deal with disputes, blah, blah, blah. So there's like the raw cost of the brief, but there's also the management time involved in doing this. And usually when you're doing more content, it becomes less efficient. If you're putting out one brief, it's relatively efficient. If you're a single founder putting out a brief, if you've got a team and you're putting out hundreds of briefs, your efficiency is coming down and down. No matter how hard you try and beat that, the efficiency is going to reduce. So for me, being able to produce, and I'd say produce and experiment using AI is definitely enabling us to produce more volume of creative. I think like big thing for me really is it's just about getting the mindset of the team correct to actually experiment with tools and giving them the freedom to do so. Because like, I don't know about you guys, but every time you log into LinkedIn or X or whatever, right, there's a new fucking tool and like, you're like, what the, you just like get this overwhelming anxiety of like, oh shit, I've missed out on another one, right? So you've got to unpick which ones are like really new tools and new models, or which ones are just like a workflow that's been strung together by somebody. And like, everybody's always making these posts like, hey, comment this and you're going to make $1 million by tomorrow. I'm like, mate, just fuck off. Like, there's a load of nonsense. Like, it's just, it's a load of crap. Like, so what we normally do is to how to get people in the team to actually pay attention to this. Honestly, it's a bit of like gamification. So we have this app in Slack called Matter app. If you guys know it, I'm not affiliated, just check it out. It's really cool. You can give each other tokens. So it basically means you can incentivize people to do certain things. And each week we run a challenge, an AI challenge with a new tool or a new process within an existing tool. And we say to the team, hey, produce whatever you want. And the winning one at the end of the week, and it doesn't have to be the winning ad, but just the winning, somebody judges it, gets a bunch of tokens. And those tokens can be used at Starbucks, Amazon, whatever. They can be used in a lot of different places. Occasionally, like I'll get passionate about some new tool and I'll put a bounty there. So I'll like put out like a big prize. When I say big prize, I'm talking like maybe the biggest one I've done is like $100 or $200. And I'll just put it out there and say, hey, somebody make me an N8N workflow that does this, right? First person to do it gets the coins. And there's always a lot of like chat, and there's always a lot of experimentation happening around that. And I think that's how you create an ecosystem where people experiment. Also, I single-handedly approve all the softwares in the company. So anytime somebody requests a new software, I approve it straight away. And I see that all the different tools I see the rate at which we're experimenting with new tools. And if I don't see new requests coming through, like at least, a few times a month, I'm like, okay, we're not experimenting fast enough. But we also have to cancel things. So we kind of rotate and test a few different things. And then just touching on like what we're using at the moment. So I'd say the staples is Midjourney for images for sure. Flux is, great. We access Flux via file.ai. So if you guys know file.ai, that's like probably the best site where you can experiment with lots of different models in one place. The UI is kind of fixed, but it allows you to access like almost every model. And you basically rent their GPU space. So definitely check those guys out. They just got their Series C to raise like 125 million in, which is, I find insane because it's essentially a front end wrapper for a bunch of different models. So we experiment in FAL. We use Midjourney a lot. We've been playing around with Omni reference and things like that. And then VO3, of course, where videos just completely changed the game. And then runway references we started to use recently. So we're kind of playing with that. Kling again, as Barry mentioned, we've played on with that. So we're continuously experimenting with different things. Dramina we played with, Arcads as well for UGC. Which people have mixed feelings on, but yeah, we've got a whole stack of things that we use, but we're continuously testing every single week.
Yeah, I got a shout out for Flux too. I think it's great with I use Replicate to get the tokens for Flux or whatever, and it is super phenomenal. I'm a big fan of that. I think it's so clever. I think training it is the hardest part. I wish I could pay somebody to just train it.
Yeah, there's a new thing came out a few weeks ago called Flux Context. I don't know if you played around with it, but basically you can train a model. It's the fastest way to train things. So you get like a bunch of images of a product or a person or an environment. You put it into Flux Context, and then once the context is built, you can actually use that to then generate things in Flux Realism. So I find that's working pretty good.
Nice. Maybe I'll use it for my YouTube. Just throw in all my thumbnails and never have to work at that stuff ever again. That'd be nice. Yeah. No, I think that's all.
Can I give you an idea real quick? Wait, can I give you an idea real quick for that, Charlie? Something I did for a YouTube thumbnail to get like Mr. Beast-ish facial expressions. Just take a picture of yourself, a frame of yourself like this, right, in the setting of the video, and then just put it into Veo and say show a bunch of reactions, or like, and literally it'll take your face and react however you want it to.
And then you just just snapshots.
Yeah, just take a frame.
All right.
So
I'm gonna put that in my notes here. Hold on a second.
Yeah, I had told Dara that trick. I think she used it.
That's interesting. I'm gonna play with that. Well, one thing I'll say as well is,
at the very least, it's fun to see your face. It's also horrifying, by the way, to put a frame of yourself.
It never gets my hair right. That's my only problem. Yeah. But the Arcads is that UGC tool. I think we've all used them. And again, mixed feelings. But when you nail it, it's great. I have a question. I have a couple points, but like something you were saying, Shabazz. I totally have worked with 9-figure brands. I've scaled brands to that high, and we've had tons of ads in there. I totally get on board with that. Captions AI is dope, by the way. I have a question though. Why are we copying 9-figure brands for strategy? Like that, the idea is if I want to start a sneaker company, all I got to do is pay Michael Jordan, and then I'm going to be rich. Sure. Like, here's my point. Don't copy a 9-figure brand to become them. That's not how they got there. And so, so let's extrapolate this out a little bit more. Like, the payment structure for a creative production, is that a better investment than having more singularity in the customer journey? Because the first sale is the least profitable. Do I want to be good at performance marketing to get my CPA low, or do I want to have a really steady customer flow of people that are likely to pay me again and again and again? And when we launch new ads, inherently any new creative, organic or paid, launches at essentially the bottom of the funnel, of the delivery funnel. Like, the machine shows the ads to the warm audience to see if they like it. And then based on that reception, it decides the frequency and the CPM and how it's delivered. So every time you launch new ads, you're forcing fatigue on all of the old ones. And because you have more inconsistency in the funnel, that's making growth more expensive. So for me, it's like, the more ads you launch, trying to copy how, like, I mean, I did this stuff for Fabletics and those guys, and yeah, we were testing a ton, right? When I got 310 Nutrition to 100 million, like, we were launching a ton of ads, absolutely. But I'd rather have an ad like an Under Outfit that gets to 2 million rather than launch 1,000 ads that last for 4 days and constantly cycle up paying creative teams instead of letting the machine's AI tell me these are the best people. Like, let me give a small example of this, and I feel like I've stepped over 3 questions, and so I apologize. I'm gonna try to wrap it up in a simple thing. If I have a steakhouse, I could try to put everything on the menu to get you to buy from me. And let's say I get you a wedge salad, which it costs me like 40 cents, and I sell for $40. Great profit, right? It's lettuce with cheese, done, right? Shout out to Chelsea Living Room and their wedge salad. Not a fan, but great markup. Fan of the business, not the meal, but whatever. They're good stuff. Or now you might enjoy that, but odds are I paid $40. I'm never going back again. But I could have served you like the best filet mignon you've ever enjoyed. I might only make $20 on that, but you might come back 10 times and bring all of your friends. The point is, the first transaction is the least profitable. The stickiest action in any customer journey with the business is what makes somebody want to come back again. And if I can elevate leveraging the business model, isn't that far more important than paying a bunch of people to help me get more individuals who are more and more unhappy with my business, which raises my CPMs, creates ad fatigue, and makes acquiring new customers more and more difficult? I get that you need to do that when you're spending 150, 200, 300 million dollars, but most people, if you're not spending over 6 figures a day, the more ads you launch, the harder you make it for you to be able to reach new people, and you're creating ad fatigue as like a standard practice. That's a very long-winded, poorly asked question. I apologize for that.
Yeah. Was that a question or a statement?
Okay, so the question is, why are we copying 9-figure brands?
Because they make 9 figures.
A little bit here,
Yeah, but the creative isn't the reason they make 9 figures.
I mean, it's a product and the offer before the creative, but the creative is definitely driving the product and the offer to the market, right?
I would disagree with that. I don't think it's the product or the offer; it's the business model.
Maybe
There are a ton of athleisure brands. Fabletics and textile is massive because the business model is better.
Yeah, but what do you mean business model though? Like, what does that even mean?
The ability to get a customer to pay you repeatedly.
But that's marketing.
No, that's not marketing.
That's not business model.
Marketing, but most of it is like, you don't pay. I don't care how good your marketing is. If you spend money and you feel ripped off, or the product doesn't meet your needs, or you're buying it because of price or some trick, like the ability to get 100 different people to all want to buy from you again and again is a lot more around how your business operates than like the quality of the ad. But like, I don't want to derail us, because I know this is about like, I guess my point is, I find that a lot of people are using the AI and using a lot of these tools to massively ramp up production value. But I think one of the greatest values of AI, especially with Andromeda, is that you have less and less of a need to do that. And you can take far more educated shots than throwing way more spaghetti at the wall. And that's, to be fair, one of the things that I was just going through the lens stuff. That's one of the reasons I'm a big fan of it, is because I can see what's working, what's not, and what's sticky and what's fading. And if I just make more stuff like the stuff that's sticky, I don't have to make nearly as many things, and I can spend the rest of my time getting more people to buy a second time rather than trying to trick more people into buying once.
Cool.
I can see the cogs turning for Shabazz right now. I think one of the reasons why people might be copying the 9-figure, 8-figure brands is because they think they've got something figured out. Maybe it's for the exact same reason that Alex has shared this and this screenshot of Dr. Squatch's ads, right? Is there something to learn from this, right? And when you were talking about focusing on the message, and when Barry was talking about overlaying text and coming up with ideas for overlay text, I thought, this reminds me of what Alex was saying. Maybe there is something to learn from the brands that have spent so much.
I wonder
money
where Alex
in
got
now.
that from. I wonder.
Yeah.
You know,
It does look a little familiar. I'm gonna go ahead and say
for those-
that it.
For those who don't know, Alex and I are business partners, and so we talk about that stuff. I own a piece of ad crate. But like, yeah, like, first of all, I want to address that. Like, shout out Alex, that was a great post. One thing him and I talk about all the time is like creative waste, and like not like if a lot of times we'll like put energy and effort into making something and then it'll fail, which is fine, but then we don't reuse it and retry it. So it's about like, no, how do we like go back at it, take that thing that like we had a good hypothesis about and just put life back into it with a little change. It's really not that crazy, especially now that you can use AI to analyze it, and also add to it. It is definitely something like it's kind of silly to not do a better job reusing it.
Yeah.
It reminds me of like kind of like the idea of like finding. There's this concept of finding sawdust in a business. Like, and it's like pretty much, IKEA is built on this idea. Is like IKEA just buys a bunch of sawdust and makes bullshit furniture. But you can implement that idea, and they have like a bunch of margin on it. But the idea is like at any point in your business, everything that you are doing has sawdust. And so like, what can you, if you are building like a beautiful table out of hardwood, you generate all this sawdust, like what can you do with the sawdust that just exists? And I think that's like one of the most powerful things with AI is like it connects production to strategy much closer. And like what Shabazz was saying was like, yeah, if you go like the traditional route where you have all these people in the way, it takes a long time and your efficiency goes to zero, and there's like zero use in that sawdust. But if you can have someone in the shop sweeping it up and just trying to figure out what to do with it, and they're the strategic thinker, your actual return on that is like so much higher than what it could be because your hard sunk cost and like the materials is zero. And so I think that's what like people should be thinking about a lot is even just that concept of like, where is their sawdust and like, how can we use AI to transform this into something that's valuable, or like an iterative engine that's just like consistently going, because the hard work's already been done.
Yeah, totally agree. I think to that point, kind of agreeing with both of you really there. I think one thing I've been doing more recently is getting existing ads which didn't work and just trying to improve them. When you get a gut feeling where you're like, what, this should have worked and I don't understand why it didn't work. Just putting it back in Premiere Pro, sitting with the editor and just like hashing it out again, doing another version. And often what we'll do now is like, the typical thing of launching multiple different variations in an ad set, and everyone has their own different testing methodology, I'm sure. But, we still do testing in that way with auction selection. But I find that like once we've got like a version that we're kind of happy with is, it's like compliant and it's all the spelling is correct and everything, we'll just accept that as like one of the final versions. And if we try and do revisions, we won't then go and only launch the revision, we'll launch both versions. So we go through this iterative process of improving something and then just launching all of them at the same time, because you never really know which one is going to work. And I think just to kind of conclude on the point around 9-figure brands, I totally agree. You've got to like look at where you're at in terms of your own brand. If you're at 7 figures, 8 figures, whatever. But ultimately, I think like as your revenue goes up, you need to be producing more creative to appeal to a wider audience of people, right? So naturally, you have to actually produce more creative across a more diverse range. So I think like it's not about copying a 9-figure brand. It's more about like aspiring to what they've done to get to that point. And all of them have got a diverse range of creative, all of them, every single one of them. If you go into all of their ad libraries, they're all running 1,000 ads, like, or at least in the hundreds of ads. And it's generally quite diverse. So I think like, for me, I think it's like just looking at what resource you've got at the moment and getting the maximum yield out of that resource before then leveling up to the next step. But the 9-figure brand is just like, it's just like something to aim towards as opposed to, okay, we should do exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, look, I agree with both of you. Like, I'm kind of more with Charlie. Like, there's so much that large 9-figure brands are doing that no one listening to this, maybe one person listening to this, should replicate or be paying attention. But like, it's like from a business perspective, yeah, like, or a product perspective, maybe, yeah, go. I hate when people just copy other people. From that, I think it's lazy, but makes sense, right, from a business perspective. But from an ads perspective, a lot of the stuff that like a larger brand is doing, is they're at a different stage in their life cycle as a business and what customers know and understand about their brand, about their product, etc. But more so, like, just there are some bigger businesses that are absolutely still have the motor in place but most, especially the ones that have gotten acquired, it's fucking gone. The people, the motivation, the drive, the hunger, all of it. The machine is dead. And we don't know that as outsiders, but I've been through enough of these and worked with enough of these to know I know a lot of brands that are big that I would look at what they do and actively not do that. So there are some that I would look towards that I think still understand what needs to be done from a modern performance mindset, but way too many mega brands that have scaled and gotten to those points still have the drive and motivation and understanding of their modern customer and the content that they consume that it's worth replicating. It's not worth paying attention to them for almost anyone who's a 6-figure brand or a 7-figure brand.
Yeah,
I want to jump on this too, Barry, real quick with a quick example of that. I made a lot of mistakes once and wasted $17 million of Activision's money, and Call of Duty was still the #1 game.
That's a great story that most people would never share, right? Like most people would, or actually most people who'd be in that situation would have actually said, no, I'm the hero of that story.
No. I staked my flag in the ground for Canvas ads, had developers. There's 4 teams at the time, Hyphen. I think they're dead now. Who knows? Hyphen I was the senior ad ops. We made so many mistakes. That still worked. Why? Because the product was amazing. The positioning, the brand, everything around it, like it existing worked. But the thing is, there's 17 layers or whatever of like infrastructure of people that are just trying to keep a paycheck, including me at the agency of like, okay, great. Well, they're willing to spend whatever we want. What's the way to raise the billable as high as possible? Well, they said yes to 13. They rejected 22. We got 17. And everything was an abject failure. And 2 weeks later, they deprecated the Canvas ads anyway. So there are just a little bit of context to that stuff. There are wins and losses. Now being said, Dr. Squatch, which you brought up earlier, a great example of a brand knowing their customer, finding a spot in the market and going all in on something that worked. Like the Sweeney stuff, that's brilliant. That's a huge win.
Interesting. Let's actually talk about Dr. Squatch for a second. What just happened to Dr. Squatch? Does anyone know the news about Dr. Squatch that happened in the last, month or two?
No.
I mean, they made a lot of money.
Didn't they just
Or they
acquired?
got a lot of money. I don't know if they made a lot of money.
They just got a lot of. They just got acquired. So
Yeah.
yeah, a great brand to have studied up until pretty much tomorrow. Like,
look at what they did 3 years ago.
No, maybe look at what they did 3 months ago, but 3 years ago wouldn't even be relevant to now. But like what they did 3 months ago was probably really hard work because they're still hustling, getting it. I mean, I'm sure they'll still put out some great stuff for a while. But often after these acquisitions, the acquiring company is like, oh, we'll take it from here, Squirt. We'll take it from here, Sport. We got it. You guys, great job. Pat on the back. We're the big business people now. We got it from here. And then
is it Unilever?
I forget who.
It is.
But maybe that won't happen. And maybe that won't happen. And maybe these giant mega companies have learned from these mistakes in the past. But I've seen it up close and personal, both through acquisitions I've been through and other clients I've worked on through acquisitions. Like post acquisition, a year later, I will be very, and someone mark my words and come throw this in my face. I dare someone at Dr. Squatch team to hear this and come at me. I bet you they'll be making very limp, boring ads a year from now, but tons of people will still be trying to replicate them.
Let's hope they do better than Jaguar.
It really just depends on the corporate strategy of the acquisition in most cases, right? Like that's like the real like truth here is that like performance got them there, but the corporate strategy of Unilever potentially isn't to like 10x the D2C, right? And I think like that's just like the truth of what happens here is like the mission ends up being completely different, and like you can end up like reading the wrong lines.
We should do another separate thing about talk about that, because I think that's not what we're here to talk about today, but it's really an important topic.
I do want to say something about AI and the iterations, going back to something where I really agreed on what Shabazz and Barry were talking about, because I do think while we have differences on some approaches, there's also a lot of singularity in what we're talking about. And I really want to call something out and get to a little bit behind it. The iterative process and the replaying of winners. And Shabazz, you were talking about going into Premiere and just cutting stuff up. There's an element to the AI. And again, I'm going to come maybe more from the machine learning version of AI than the tools to make more stuff. Because I'm more of a fan of I'm more of a fan of data science than I'm a left brain, right brain guy. I'm on the other side of the fence of where you guys are at, which is great. One of the reasons the ads really work, especially on third, fourth, fifth iteration, is because you're giving the machine more and more data around who likes this stuff. So for instance, the Under Outfit ad I called out earlier that spent $2 million. That ad we were spending $2,000 a day before that ad launched. And we went from 50K a month to $1 million a week in like 18 months. Okay. The reason that worked wasn't because that was the ad that was great. We did a photo shoot. We launched a bunch of image ads. We found the ads that worked. We then found a bunch of headlines that worked. We then took the headlines and threw them in the images that worked. And the machine is getting better and better because we didn't launch 1,000 ads. The data set that the machine has on the ads that we're deploying and who likes the brand is getting more and more focused. It's getting smarter and smarter at doing this really valuable thing well. We then found out another headline that worked. And then we took the best images and we put it into like a slideshow. The video of that slideshow built on the image testing of inside the product and outside product shots, people in it, all sorts of stuff, and then all the text overlays and everything. The fourth iteration of that process sat on top of the mountaintop of all of the data, all of the spend that had come before it, and all of the modeling behavior that the AI had done around who likes this messaging. And because we really drove deeper and deeper and deeper with that singular sort of approach, which was show the construction and talk about like, the positioning of the business over and over again, by the time that video hit, yes, that video was a good ad, but it's a slideshow of 6 images with a text overlay that stayed a persistent text overlay in the upper left-hand corner. Like I did that with the slideshow function on the Facebook ad tool. Like there's no text.
Just a question. Is that the AI learning, or is it you as a creative strategist, as a human, learning what's working and therefore producing the next round?
It's both. It's both. It's us. It's me as a data scientist understanding what people respond to well and what they don't. And it's also the AI getting more and more data around these are the people that respond well to showing the construction of the bra rather than a woman in it. These are the people responding to this type of vernacular, this type of language of, of an us versus them, kind of thing of like, not to get too much in the business, but, Skims is for one kind of woman, we're for everybody else, like those types of things. And as the machine gets more and more data around this customer persona, the more hits you take at that customer persona, your ability to strike gold gets a lot better because you're digging deeper and deeper, but also the machine is getting wider and wider at what you're teaching it. So I think it's both. I don't think you could get there without leveraging both sides of it. And I will say that almost every time I've gotten an ad that spent 7 figures, it looked a lot like ads. It was built on the learnings of other ads that dropped off at 4, at 5, and at 6. And it was that mountaintop they were building, not only through getting better at the ad, but also understanding the reason that ad performs is because the machine is getting better at knowing who to serve it to.
Yeah, I think we can reach alignment on that point where like you don't want to produce, when I say produce a lot of ads, you don't want to randomly produce stuff. Like, that's just a bad idea. You do want to do sequential creative testing, right? So you want to like figure out what worked, then go to the next step, right? It should always be based on a hypothesis on what previously worked. I will kind of caveat that and say there is space for like human randomness and weirdness. And you need to sometimes just like go all in and lean into that and just like ignore everything else in the ad account and just like zone in, go into a quiet space. I have a tent in my office. I literally sit inside the tent and just
like a camping tent.
I have like so I have these like things on the side of my desk, like panels, and I have this like big sheet that goes over the top of the back of it. It's like a fort. I'll send you a picture afterwards.
Amazing. Because I was thinking like, when they're selling a house, I'm like, this is the kids' room, and it's like this little teepee thing. But no, you've got like a fort. Like, I'm so jealous.
I'll send you a picture afterwards. It's pretty good. But for me, that's my like creative space. If I like switch off there's no light basically, it's just all dark, and I have this like LED light. And if I feel like being creative, I just kind of lock myself in there. And I feel like you need that human weirdness and creativeness, and that's like where you end up not copying what everybody else is doing, where you just come up with random weird things at work. But I feel like that only works when you really understand your consumer psyche, and when you spend enough time reading the comments, reading the Reddits, reading all the things that your customers are saying, speaking to them, going on video calls with them.
Watching the ads, like literally
watching
the ads that work and don't work, spending that time instead of just naming them and studying. Oh, did the ones that were UGC work better than the ones that weren't labeled UGC? Fuck that. Go watch your ads.
Yeah. I totally agree with that so much. Like, we spent a long time trying to figure out naming convention and getting it perfect. And like, now AI is coming in and is tagging everything anyway. So like, what's the point? And even the AI tools that do tag everything, you kind of consider like, what is the usefulness of that? Because like, okay, well, what are you going to tell me that there's this one consistent element, but it doesn't watch the ad for you, right? I think one thing that is more useful, I think maybe Barry, you alluded to this earlier about like improving ads. One thing we've been playing around with is just chucking an ad into Gemini and saying, hey, can you just improve this for me? Like, where would you improve it? And also raw footage, asking it to, we send it like a long raw footage that's uncut. And we're like, okay, find me the hooks. And actually, I'd say like 50% of the time, it's finding some pretty decent hooks. Bear in mind, it's looking at the visual and the copy as well. It's not just the transcript, it's the visual as well when you do it in Gemini. I found that's pretty useful.
Can I ask, what's the actual operational process of that? Like, are you just opening up Gemini, uploading a video file, and then saying, find the hooks? Is it just for people watching this, like, what is the executional process to leverage that? Because it feels simple, which is great. But if people don't execute it right, they could maybe miss it.
Yeah.
You walk through that real quick?
Yeah, I don't want to misquote, but we've got a Gemini plan for the company, and around about half the users in the company have access to it. And I think they get like a certain token usage, which like we've never had any additional billings on. But there's definitely a lot of hard costs involved in like running the different models and the different tools, and it does get expensive. But then you consider the cost of making real content. And like, you're like, well, it's just still a fraction of the cost. So like, it's just a non-argument, basically. It's like, well, this costs a few cents to make or analyze or whatever. I think it's worth spending every single time.
Gotcha.
Where things can get out of hand is when you've got a workflow, like an N8N workflow that just starts to loop on itself, and you can end up spending a lot of money by accident. So those are the kind of situations you want to avoid. We've had that happen a few times. But generally, I'd say the Gen AI stuff is like relatively not cost prohibitive.
Yeah, on
I
production.
like your approach, Charlie, of using AI to drive quality and not quantity, and using that internal competition between you as a creative strategist, understanding the data, to understand what you need to iterate on, what's working. But I do agree with you, Shabazz, that quantity is also important, right? You need swings at bat to hit a home run. But I think at the core of this is that prioritizing one can't sacrifice the other. You can't prioritize quality to the extent where you're not doing anything new. And you can't prioritize quality to the extent, or I should say, quantity to the extent where you have just a bunch of garbage ads.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think the underlying principle is what Barry said, is like, watch your ads. Like, why aren't you like watching ads after they've been produced? The whole team should be watching them and trying to improve them. I think that's the key thing.
Yeah, and I don't think someone called me out and thank you for saying it, but like also someone called me out for being a dum-dum. But like, I really think we have some time before AI can actually beat human brains in studying and winning in terms of video assets and storytelling. And I'd love to be proven wrong, but I'm just not seeing it yet.
I mean, I think we've had ads winning which have been completely produced with AI. I'd say we've had more images working than videos, but there have definitely been some videos. But I'd say like, usually it's not the entire video. We have had entire videos made and they've gone to spend like 100K plus. But I think it's mainly like production of hooks.
But there's still a human
B-roll.
prompting that. There's still humans, like.
Can I make an analogy to this? Because it's one
Wait.
thing to talk about this as all. Oh, sorry, Barry. Go.
I want to hear what Shabazz was saying. Hold on.
Yeah, sorry.
Go on, Barry. Sorry, Barry, you finished. What was the question?
No, I was just saying, like, surely there was a human involvement is what I was suggesting, right? Like, that you still had to prompt, like, for that AI stuff that you've had made, right? Like,
yeah, I think we end up in a situation where there's like, we're all using reinforcement learning models, which basically, if I was to kind of explain that in simple terms, like imagine you have a Tinder for making ads where like you can swipe left if you don't like the ad, and you can tell it why you don't like the ad, and you swipe right if you like the ad, and you tell it why you don't like the ad. And I think that's where we're all ending up within 12 months, 24 months. If somebody doesn't build it, I'll build it. But if somebody is building it, tell me.
But that's biased, right, by our human beliefs, right?
You could also feed the data, though, and say performance metrics as being the bias of it. I want to kind of make a bit of an analogy here because we're talking pretty technical stuff, but like the way I look at it is like, I'm a musician. I've been in bands, a bunch of stuff. And it's like the AI led stuff all feels like boy bands, right? It's the next replaceable hit song from no name pop group. And
what's wrong with boy bands?
What's that? Nothing. I love it. Don't get me wrong. I've got like a party playlist and I will dance and sing along to the NSYNC stuff. There's nothing wrong with it. But there's a place for it that also creates opportunity for other folks that are manufacturing their own stuff. I think the more that folks are leaning in to the AI, the more that creates the opportunity for person. And I think ultimately there's this life cycle of some brands are built in a way where their end goal, they have one product and it's the business, and they're doing everything possible to exit that business, and they're going the boy brand route from day one. There are other brands that are more founder led that might go in the very human side of things from day one. And I think that both playbooks can work. I think you can even do a little bit of both, but I do think that the more you lean into the manufacturing of just what works and just having the reinforcement of just everything being very much the same, the more there's an opportunity to come in with a different idea and introduce humanity to certain things in a way that might ultimately get lost. And to your point, taking both shots really works, because you can have people on your team that are just doing the person doing the fun thing, and then other people doing that reinforcing nature, and every human win might end up feeding that nature. And so the ground is,
I think like a really good way to like frame this and like think about it is if you look at the billable invoices of like traditional agencies over like the last 50 years and you compared the production budgets to the strategy budgets, it would feel silly. But the truth there is that like strategy was always like incredibly important. And like people paid a lot for strategy. The number of strategies you could execute on was limited by budget because there was a certain production budget. What's true now is that production doesn't have as many constraints on the strategies that you can execute. And so what does that now mean to be true? It means that more strategies are now they now have the option to be executed on. And so like, I think it's just like, if we look at the reconfiguring of where money needs to go to make something happen, it's the opportunity now is like, you can now execute more strategies potentially. And so that's probably what you should do, because like, that's where I think now like the arbitrage is, because there's been a reshuffling of where money needs to go. It means it unlocked the other thing, which is like, we don't need to choose one.
I think that leads to a natural like flattening of job roles as well. So at the moment, if you think about the process of making ads, right, you've got a media buyer, a creative strategist, a video editor, and a content creator, right? Usually you'll have like 3-4 people involved in, let's say, making an average ad. I'm excluding like graphic design stuff or whatever, right? Let's just say a standard video ad. I think what will end up happening is you'll just have a media buyer, or I don't even know what their job title is going to be going forward, growth strategist, and they'll just be prompting and making and launching themselves. So I think basically 3 or 4 job roles get flattened into one, at least for a certain type of ad production. And I think that gets interesting because all of a sudden, people who didn't have that creative outlet or didn't have that ability to produce now have the ability to produce, and everybody in your company becomes a producer. I think that's the biggest shift, right? In my opinion.
But those people might not have taste or understanding.
Yeah, you don't want me doing it. I'll be flat out. I'll be the best person looking at the data, but you ask me to do the prompting. I mean, Barry has challenged me repeatedly to make more ads, and I do appreciate that. But like, there are kids, any kid with a Snapchat account is going to beat me on making video 9 times out of 10. 99 out of 100. Like, so I agree with your approach. I have one question with what you just said, Shabazz, and what Zach you just said, because I agree that production is now not the constraint. And I agree that there's opportunity on arbitrage there, but there is now a new constraint, which is inventory. You could launch 1 million ads and they all get 10 impressions. The stat sig, the confidence in the data set that you have, the more there is a direct and inverse relationship. The more shots you take, the less confident you are. Basically, the more ads you have, the dumber every one of them is. And so I'm wondering how you feel about that. Like, you could launch 100 ads, 1,000 ads, 1 million, but unless you have the budget to back up getting an understanding of how the machine is using that ad and how people are responding to it and what that ad does to your bottom line, I think it is very easy to essentially over leverage that arbitrage position to the place where you are you're just pulling lottery tickets hoping to get lucky.
So is your thesis that there's potential winners that will never see the light of day?
No, my thesis is that you're looking for winners when it's actually not about a winning ad. It's about having a well-constructed funnel that is stable and consistent. And let me put it to you this way. If that ad gets spent, what happens to your bottom line? And if you can't answer that question, your system is too complicated. And so ultimately, there's only so many eyeballs. There's only so many places to show an ad. And that inventory is getting more expensive. I'd argue the more ads you launch, the more expensive that inventory gets faster and faster. So it's not free, right? Like, there's not this infinite world where you can just get data.
Yeah, but I think you have to look at what is the total addressable market. You're not just comparing against your own ads. It's the whole market that you're going after, right? So if there's a market, well, I don't know, sleep supplements, you're not just competing against your own sleep supplement ads, you're competing against everybody's.
Ads and organic and just people walking around in the world. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can't say nobody can say with certainty because we don't understand how their algorithm truly works. People at Meta can't even tell you whether or not you launching another ad is going to, reduce the frequency on one of your existing ads or somebody else's ads that sell sleep supplements. We have no idea.
But you can launch an ad and see what happens.
Individual.
Sorry, Jack, you said.
I was just saying the inventory isn't purchased by individual ads, it's purchased by dollars. Right? The dollars is what's going to determine the cost of the inventory, right?
Yeah, and also the user experience, right? Like, if people have an inconsistent experience with your brand on their website, or if they don't like the product, like, an easy way of reducing your CPMs and making customer acquisition cheaper is by having a more consistent customer journey where more people are happy with your business. Like, one of the easiest ways to reduce your CPMs is just have more people buy a second time.
Yeah, but you have to assume that, like, in this like simulation that we're running in our heads, we have to assume that we figured out the business. And then now our objective is, how do we scale the business?
Sure.
With advertising, because that's our main go-to-market channel.
Yeah, and I'll say this, okay, if we take that, I think we then have the, both sides of the coin of when you iterate, you can probably do better at what you're good at, which is optimization. And when you take the shots, like Shabazz was saying, and I'm a big fan of that, then you're going to get to the spot where that's a bit of a risk, right? Like, it might work, it might not. But I think you have to take those risks if you want to get bigger instead of just getting more efficient with the money you spend.
I think this comes down to testing strategy as well. And Barry, I'd like to get your opinion on this as well. I know that some people go down the route of, like, just have one ASE and chuck everything in there and just see what happens. From my point of view, that doesn't give a fair test to, like, the new ads that are coming in because the existing ones have got traction, right? So we still go down the route of, like, launching with cost caps in new testing campaign with different ad sets for every single test that we're running. And we migrate things across to ASE. So that's like our pretty typical setup. I guess my question is, we do testing with cost caps, but when we have confidence in a creative, so let's say we're like, we want to push this one a bit more because we just got a gut feeling, a marketing sense that this is going to resonate better with the audience. We tend to bump up our cost caps, or we switch to highest volume. I don't know what your thought is on this, because I think this impacts into, like, what we're saying here around, like, volume of creative, because if you're doing cost caps, you're going to have to produce more to get something that works naturally. If you're doing highest volume, it's high risk because you're putting a lot more money behind an ad. But if you have high confidence because you've got previous traction and you know what kind of ads work, maybe there is a space for that. So yeah, I've seen all your posts online. I'd like to just get your perspective on this one.
Sure. I love that question. It's my favorite topic, perhaps. Aside from making ugly ads. You know, what you said makes sense. I like the sound of that. There's just I really try not to go against what the system wants to do, assuming that I have the system set up in a way like that the data I trust that it's optimizing on my behalf, which it's not always doing. But to your point, like if you're saying like, hey, this ad that we made, it's not getting a lot of spend, but we think it's really good for if that's sometimes bad. But if it's for good reason, that's sometimes good. Like, so if you just like it because you guys like it, like you're fucked, right? Like, please don't, right? Just, try not to, I'm not saying you, right? I mean, everyone listening, right? Like try not to have an ego about it. Try to be aware of your biases and try and break those down. But if you're like watching this ad and you're like, I don't like, this should be scalable, or like, it seems like it has other positive downstream effects, then yeah, crank it. And usually I like to think of that as like, I think of it kind of like a marathon. Like the motivation to get you to complete a marathon, right, is very different than the motivation that it gets you to like sign up for a marathon. But the ad that gets you to complete the marathon is the one that gets the credit for the conversion, right? Gets credit for the, so like, is the last cup of water someone drinks during a marathon, is that what we fully attribute the completion of the marathon to? Right? Mm-hmm. Or was there a whole slew of things that had to happen before they got there? And now that depends on the product, that depends on the thing. There's entire ads that can get someone from zero to buy right now for certain things, right? But you have to acknowledge like some ads and some products, they just require more education, more time. Mm-hmm. And the more your ad gets colder people into market or colder people to become aware, the higher it's going to cost. And you either should be doing that via understanding your ad creative and then increasing your cost caps to allow for that, or, intentionally like excluding people so that ad is only being shown to those colder users. And then also building your tolerances. It's not just about cost cap. It's like your tolerances. Cause right. You're saying like you can go to highest volume too. It's about having a tolerance for ads that you're okay with being less apparently efficient. And I think that nuance is really, really, really important.
Yeah, I totally agree. You get brands where they run a VSL. It's like 30 minutes, 40 minutes on the landing page. You get them from 0 to 100 and they convert, right? And it's
possible. Yeah,
it does happen. It does happen. It's a completely different strategy. Well, I mean, one thing that we do, I don't know what your take is on this, it'd be interesting to hear, is that when we know that a particular style of ad has got a higher new visitor rate, so we check GA and see like has that ad on average got a higher new visitor rate. Sometimes what we'll do is we'll bump up the cost caps. So we'll allow it to spend more just because we know it's bringing in new traffic to the website. Whereas some of your like offer statics, your product focus things, which are more bottom of funnel, getting a higher return visitor rate, we'll bring it down. And what we do is we work out the blended average and we try and predict, okay, this is where the cap should be roughly for this kind of type of ad and this kind of ad. Of course, what ends up happening is they scale differently, so you're never going to get it perfect. So we're tracking this in real time. So I don't know what your thought is on using that process, or if you have a different way of doing it.
It's noble, it's honorable. I like the sound of it. I just really I don't want to be doing that much to get that much manual granular control. I'm not saying I'm right, but like that's just generally a little too much involvement for me. I'd rather the system do some more of it. But if you have human context that the system cannot have, right? Then I would apply it. Just know that your context or your bias might be wrong. But in this case, I don't know. I don't think it's bad. It's definitely not bad.
Yeah. What do you guys find on the abundance of new tools that are out there? Are you testing all of them? I know I heard from you, Shabazz, that you're checking out quite a few of them. You're encouraging your team to check them out. But what are you guys' thoughts and feelings about some of these new tools that are coming out and making lots of noise?
Icon. He's blocked me on all social medias because I called him out for making a product that doesn't work.
Oh, yikes.
I'll say this. the tools are only as good as the application, and the value for the business is only as good as how much it amplifies the way that you acquire future cash flow. And what really matters by that is like, it's only as good as how you can use it. I think whether it's Icon or ArcAds, whether using VO or making images in chat, what matters most is the ability to do the job in a way that you are attracting and earning the attention of the folks who are the highest quality customers for you. And going back to something Jonas said here, are you guys using AI to create customer profiles? I absolutely do. I'll look at all the people that are my second, third, fourth time buyers, and I'll try to understand what products they're buying, and I'll talk to them. And if I can find ads, if I can build creative that is more likely to get me somebody who's going to buy 2 times or 3 times, that insight is exponentially more important than an ad that reduces my CPA on the platform by 5%. And so I am absolutely looking at who are my ideal customers, who are the 2 or 3 ideal customers that I have. If you get 2 or 3 customer profiles of the folks that'll come back and give you money more than once, like just shoot for second purchase rate. Those customer profiles is the easiest way to get to $50,000 a day if you're stuck at like 500. Chasing more than that is doing a lot of expensive work poorly. And I think having that end goal in mind is really important. So Jonas, to your point here, what I'm doing there to take an action item is I'll talk to the customers. I'll have like a Zoom call or something. I'll take the transcriptions of those conversations, and I'll also take all the customer journeys of people who bought more than once. That, like, my number one goal is let me sell the one thing in the business that has the highest propensity to somebody to come back, right? Like, I'm not running 10 different offers. I'm not launching 1,000 different ads. I'm trying to do one thing exceptionally well instead of a lot of things like mediocre, because that one thing is what's going to get you to 50 or 100. And so I'm taking that feedback from all of those people, phone calls, Zooms, customer journey stuff. And I'm saying, what is the singularity? Like, what is the way that if I were to only go in 2 or 3 different directions, how do I get the most of that person? Because those are the people that are actually going to grow your business. And there's a very different thing from being good at, some ads are great at being a salesperson. Other are great at acquiring cash flow. And I think I'd much rather try to grow the business than make a sale, if that makes sense. So I'm using AI to understand who those best customers are, and then using
what's the difference between growing a business and making a sale?
Okay, great question. Yeah. Selling any product at a profit, selling anything you can for using caps and thousands of ads to get the lowest CPA is inversely related to having the most amount of people coming back and buying from you again. Yeah, there's a big difference between selling a product and buying customer journees.
Yeah. Jack, sorry, you were saying something.
I've had a similar experience to what Charlie is describing. I used to work with a cheese brand. They were lovely. They were featured on Open's favorite things. Cheese, yeah. And their best-selling cheese on top of funnel was this Quinta cheese, but it had terrible reviews. It didn't get return customer purchases. It would turn up and people would see the ad again and then comment on the ad. Mine turned up like a brick of mayonnaise, and that would get a lot of likes and comments and people agreeing. They get bad reviews online because of this best-selling cheese, right? But their blue cheese had a higher CAC, right? It was more expensive at acquiring new customers. But these people who bought the blue cheese would come back, sometimes for years. Their lifetime value to the business was so much more. We lost Charlie. But yeah, so I've had a similar experience to Charlie. That wasn't, I guess, a move for efficiency, right? Switching over to focusing more on the original blue cheese. It was a move for the growth of the business, right? Not just the reputation of the business, but just the lifetime value.
I think cheese is a good spot to wrap this up.
I could talk about cheese for a while.
Yeah.
Awesome, guys. Well, I appreciate you all taking the time, people on the call, chatting about this, and then everybody that tuned in live. For everyone that's asking if it's going to be the recording will be shared, it will be. It will be on our YouTube channel probably in the next few hours, if not tomorrow. Yeah, definitely go follow everybody on this call. All of their socials are in the description, everything like that. Does anybody else have anything last they want to talk about AI or anything like that, or wrap it up?
talk to Grok. It's insane.
Was it talk to Grok?
Yeah, have you tried the unhinged?
Oh yeah, I love
unhinged,
it.
unhinged mode on Grok is absolutely fucking crazy.
It's incredible. It writes all our newsletters. It's amazing.
I can't tell how serious you're being.
You need to try it, Barry. It's worth the $20-$30 just to
I
test it out
definitely
for a
pay
month.
for it. Oh, I pay for it
Yeah.
for sure. I want Elon Musk to have all my money, but just kidding. Yeah, all right, I'll play with it. What should I do? What's so crazy about it?
Go into voice mode, go to unhinged, and just start talking to it. You're going to be entertained for many hours.
All right, is there anything productive I can get from it?
No, absolutely
Probably not. Probably not.
Okay, good. Well, that's what I just want to go play.
All right, guys.
I don't know. I don't have anything else.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Peace
Closing
out.
us.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, guys.
Take it easy. Bye-bye.
Toodles.